Hi, welcome back. So this is going to be our final video in this entire Solidity series, and I wanted to discuss about Payable. Now, this is very interesting concept in Solidity. Now Solidity, as you know, is the programming language that we use in order to write smart contracts in Ethereum. And right now, a lot of work happens in the DeFi segment, right? That is the decentralized finance, where a lot of transaction happens. Real money is being transacted in between users, and that's why this concept of Payable came in with the Solidity version 0.5.0, and I basically wanted to discuss on this. So Payable is a very special type of a modifier, and also it is also used as an identifier, typically for addresses to distinguish in between which address will be receiving ether and which won't. When we write smart contract, we need to ensure that money is being sent to that contract and also out of that contract. Now, Payable is something that does this for us. Now, any function in Solidity with modifier Payable, it ensures that the function can send and receive ether. Now, the distinction between the address and the address Payable was, as I mentioned, introduced in 0.5.0 version. Now, the main idea was that to make a distinction between the addresses that can receive money and the one who can't receive money or may be restricted to receive money for lot of other purposes. So simply speaking, an address Payable can receive ether while a plain address can't, right? So what we'll do is that in this video, we'll try to create a pay contract, right? So what does pay contract will do is, we'll first write down a method which will basically pay ether to our contract, and then we'll use that ether in order to pay it or maybe to transfer it to some other account, right? So what I will do is I will simply create one function. So that function will name it as, let's say, transfer ether, right? So transfer ether. Okay. Now again, this function is going to be a public function, and now what we'll do is we'll use the Payable modifier, right? So we will be doing, say, Payable. So we'll be using Payable modifier, and yeah, that's it. So that's all the function that we have to write in order to pay to the contract, right? Okay, so now once we have a method for transfer ether, what we'll do is we'll write down a method in order to get a balance, right? So in this case, the balance would be the balance of the contract itself, right? So we'll simply write down the function. Now function we're calling it as a get, say, balance. So get balance. Now this function is again going to be public. Now we'll have view, and it return time, since we are returning the balance, so its return type will be the unsigned integer itself. So it will returns uint, right? Now what exactly it is going to return is the address. So which address is basically this is going to be this, which is the address of the contract. Now, a very important concept to understand is that even contract has addresses, right? So this dot balance. So what it will do is it will return the balance of this contract, right? So now since it's auto compiled, it's already compiled. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and we'll deploy this contract now. So now I have deployed this contract. Now you see two methods, right? So one method is basically the get balance, another one is the transfer ether, right? So now I can do get balance and we don't have anything here. The second one is the transfer ether. Now I transferred ether, and so I can use this transfer ether, but what exactly the value is going to be is something that a remix ID provides to us. So what I will do is I will basically be transferring, say, 3 ether to it, right? So I will use this value 3, right? And I will transfer it out. Now, if I go ahead and I check this balance, right? So here you go. So we now have 3 ether being transferred, right? In this case, it's not ether. I basically transfer V. So what I will do is I will resend ethers to it. So maybe I can send 3 ethers. So let me transfer that, and here we go. So now we have say this big number is basically the V unit. So we have something more than say 3 Ether. Okay. Now what we'll do is we'll basically transfer money from this contract to some another Ethereum address. Now what we can do is we can basically use any of the addresses here. So maybe I can use this particular address and transfer money to that. So I will simply copy this address, and this is what we had used for our deployment. So now what I will do is I will create another state variable named as address. Now I have already explained in a previous video that address is also a special type of data within the Solidity. Now address will basically, I will categorize the account that I have to transfer to. So that account and address payable will basically ensures that this account is marked as a payable account, right? So we'll have something called as address payable account is equal to, now what you have to do, like earlier before say compiler version 0.5.0, we can directly pass an address, but now there is a clear distinction. So we'll simply define it as a payable, right? And I will pass on my Ethereum address, right? So now what we'll do is we'll basically create another method which will named as say transfer ether to account, right? So now in our case that account is hard coded, which is completely fine. So we'll have public, and we'll mark this function as a public itself, and then what we'll do is we have account dot transfer, right? So transfer and then what we'll do is we'll transfer say 1 ETH, right? So we'll transfer 1 Ether, or maybe we can transfer 2 Ether, so that the updated balance of the of this particular account will be 102. So current address is 101. So what I'll do is I will go ahead and redeploy. So once I have redeployed, get balance, I don't have any balance, so let me transfer 3 Ether to my contract. So 3 Ether, so I transfer Ether, my balance is now 3 ETH. Now when I will transfer this balance, so my transaction is successful, and if we'll go ahead and you will see here, this is that account that I transferred 2 ETH to. So this is all about Payable. Now Payable is a very important function, especially Payable is a very important concept, especially once we are dealing with a lot of DeFi, and I would strongly suggest you go ahead and check out its documentation in Solidity. That's all for the Solidity series. Thank you everyone.